Krishna Pushtaya Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nivasesha Sunyavadi Pashtatahara Satarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. All right, now this is I think we've actually asked this question in our classes. This question has been brought up, and I remember we was discussing it. So the question is, do we really need to make a strenuous efforts to control the mind, remember Krishna, study books, and so on? Can we just serve Lord Chaitanya's mission and depend solely on his grace? And I think that question came up in Adi Guru Prabhu's class as well. I think we asked a question along these lines on Sunday's Chaitanya Charitamrita class. But here's the question. So we just chant Hare Krishna. Why all this technical studying? You know, we're studying so much details about different levels of attainment, spiritual attainment, the constituents of rasa. So many details, difficult to remember it all. You know, by the time difficult to remember anything that we study, it's so complicated. Why can't we just go on Harinam Sankirtan or just give donations to help the mission? And do we really need to study? Why do we need to make a strenuous effort? So that's the question which is being asked to yourselves. Sorry, I think I heard Mother Chandravali's voice.
I remember when we were reading, I don't know, in Tamil or somewhere, your Guru Maharaj said, if you want to go somewhere, you have to know about that place, the journey, what you're going to do, what it is like over there, everything like that. So how are we going to get to know all these things if we don't read?
Yeah, that's a very good answer.
Know about the people there, like, Brajbasis, and, how we're going to even meditate on it. And we don't even chant properly anyway. So how can we depend on just chanting?
I think we read it into the Bhakti Chintamani.
Yeah, somewhere we read all that,
Yeah. So just the same as if you want to go on holiday somewhere, if you want to go to India, for example, then you want to find out where you're going to stay, which airport you're going to, how you're going to get from the airport to the guest house, what you're going to do for prasadam, what are you going to do when you get there? So some preparation is needed. Yeah, it's not the actual direction that Maharaj answers it, but this is correct. I wouldn't say that was wrong. It's what you're saying.
Plus, we need to know the philosophy. If people ask us why we're doing what we're doing, we need to know the route and answer the questions so they are satisfied, because it's a scientific process, and we need to obviously have a good standing and answering the questions, deeper questions.
Yeah, otherwise it looks embarrassing that we don't know what we're doing or why we're doing it.
And who the Supreme Personality of Godhead is, and why we are devoted to Krishna. So those sort of questions will be asked, and we need to be in a good standing to answer. Yeah,
very good. That's very good, Monica. It's like you might meet members of your family or friends at work who may question your particular faith. And that's a good opportunity, actually, a good opportunity. So if you come across you don't know anything, it doesn't look so good. This is also correct. Yeah. I was thinking...
Because that was a bit like me, Prabhu, in the beginning, when I used to see the Hare Krishnas on Oxford Street, where I used to work. I used to try and avoid them because I didn't have any understanding of what they were doing. All I saw was that they were chanting and just giving out books. But when they stopped me and started explaining, that's when I knew, right, okay, there's much more deeper than them just chanting on Oxford Street.
Yeah, there's a lot more. As you said, there's a lot more. There's a lot of profound and deep knowledge in what we're actually doing, and it's a shame if we don't avail ourselves to it. Also, I was thinking also is that we're going to follow. We're, to one degree or another, we're going to face challenges in our spiritual life, and where sometimes our faith may be challenged. So if we're not reading or studying very deeply, then that could be indicative of, that could result in weak faith, that we don't know, for instance, why we're going through a hard time. We actually believe in God and we're chanting his name, and now I've got a tax bill that I can't pay. That's not fair. Why is this?
I agree with you.
Then we may doubt the philosophy. But if we spend time hearing, it doesn't mean, as we discussed many times, it doesn't mean we have to become scholars as such. We might not have the inclination, and not many people do, but at least we should attend regularly classes and read to understand to the best of our capacity. But yeah, so Maharaj mentions here, though, he mentions that without making a deserving, in other words, to desire to become Krishna conscious, but you're not willing to make a deserving effort to actually become Krishna conscious. It's like trying to cheat. It's like trying to cheat. So, is that me feedback? Perhaps it's, yeah. So Maharaj mentions such willful neglect is a lazy man's idea of spirituality. Yeah. So lazy, Prabhupada said, lazy fellows are not fit for Krishna consciousness. They're not fit for Krishna consciousness. So he's highlighting here, it could be an aspect of just being lazy, you just can't be bothered. Why should I read? Why should I study? Why should I go to class? Yeah. So I just read. Yes.
Can I just say, I just wanted to put maybe a comment. I was thinking, maybe you know the philosophy and you know what to be done, but unless you really start applying in your life, and so that is when it's really starts.
Yeah, that's it. So what's the name for that? There's what's the name for knowledge? There's 3 terms given to knowledge, application, and then the goal.
Sambandha, Abhijaya, and Parochana.
That's correct. Yeah. So Nimai Mata is bringing up the aspect of abhidaya, actually practicing the philosophy.
You may be knowing, and then you may be preaching also, but you don't put any effort to change yourself. So
yeah. So yeah, we have the self has to be changed. Yeah, there's a chapter in Srimad Bhagavatam, change of heart.
Introspection. The moment you start doing introspection, only your spiritual life. That's how I feel. Otherwise, spiritual life cannot move on.
Oh, yeah. So did you use the word introspection there?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a good point. Without introspection, how can we know where we are and know where we need to move? So I just read this paragraph here from Maharaj writes, what's more, although desiring Lord Chaitanya's grace may be noble, experience shows that devotees who do not seriously cultivate sadhana cannot sustain their dependence on grace. Although it is not unheard of for persons indifferent to bhakti to receive Gauranga's mercy, it is very, very rare. Therefore, devotees unwilling to make serious effort to become Krishna conscious should not expect to be delivered by grace alone. But then Maharaj mentions here as well that devotees, may do their best to perfect their sadhana and to do service, but maybe we're conditioned, so we're kind of handicapped, So what about these persons? What about you know, if we do have a legitimate handicap in trying to read or study. So Maharaj said, he mentions that soft-hearted Krishna is sympathetic to our efforts, even though we have not much qualification, you know, we're in Kali Yuga. So if for reasons other than neglecting the process, that's one thing, and then you won't get Krishna's mercy. But if for some reason that you're unable, we may not be able to complete our Krishna consciousness, then by the Lord Chaitanya's mercy, they will receive, as Maharaj describes here, the gift of love, and Srila Prabhupada's promise of deliverance will certainly be fulfilled. So there's some encouragement there. So even if for one reason or another we are unable to come up to the mark because of our conditioned nature, if we are sincere and we're trying the best despite our conditioning, and we're not being lazy, and we're trying to understand, then what's the anantushchintayantamam ye janapayapasate tesam nityabhayukdamam yogic shemi fahamiham. For those who meditate upon my transcendental form, always meditate. For them, I carry what they lack and they preserve what they have. So that's another point here as well. We may not have much of going for us in regards to our practice of sadhana, but if we try to the best of our ability and we're not at all lazy, then Krishna will carry what we lack. Yeah. Right?
Can I share my experience, Prabhu?
Please, yes, Mother Jambavati.
You know what is it? Because many devotees are approaching me with us asking about lack of time, and because most I communicate with grihasthas, they working 9 to 5 to 6, and when coming home, and they have to cook and money and everything.
Kids, yeah.
And you know, they said, I can't control my mind. Physically, I can't control, you know. And they say, I'm working hard at work. I work in the street. I work in the temple. I work everywhere. I don't want to work on myself or on my mind. I want to rest. When I'm going to have rest? And you know, they're approaching. So I understand them because they're coming from different paths. And my advice is, if you cannot do anything, they let others to do something for you. Bring yourself to the devotees who will clean you. I'll work on your mind, and they will control your mind, because when you're very tired and you're exhausted, just put bhajan, put singing, put Hare Krishna, or put lecture. If you put lecture, or if you bring yourself to the devotees, to kirtan, to programs or whatever, association with devotees slowly will clean your mind. Slowly, your mind like muscle. It needs to be practice, and slowly your mind will get used to be controlled. Because when you go often with devotees and associate, when your mind get used to think more about those about
that's Krishna. A very good point. It's a very good point.
If we can't do anything, we have to bring yourself. Finish to bring to the devotees to programs, and to say, finish. I'm hopeless. Do me, just do me, cleanse me.
Yeah,
that's
you could say very nice practical example Mother Jambavati is given. You could say, so you take yourself to the hospital and just dump yourself in the just put yourself.
That's exactly. Yes, that's exactly. This is the best suggestion, because otherwise we're very complex, very very worried about the spiritual progress. And I noticed very good progress. We're advancing when they just going to programs, associating with devotees, started singing, and when interest comes, it's
very good practical thing. I'm just thinking like, take yourself to the temple. Like now we're having the Sunday feast again, so it's nice. You can come. Just park yourself there, listen to the lecture, take part in bhajans, or go take part in the festival. I think Maharaj also spoke about that as well, as a ways to tidy up our spiritual life. And as you mentioned, devotees come to the understanding that they cannot control our minds. Mother Jambavati's made it. So take that uncontrolled mind next to the Vaishnavas. and just sit there. and gradually you'll get a taste for Krishna Katha. Yeah, thank you, Baba Jamavati. All right, I think we did well on that question. Covered it from different angles of vision. It's very good. So let's look at 119. A few spelling mistakes here. Can beginners, one sec, can beginners or casual readers hear or read about the loving ecstasies of Srimati Radharani and the pastimes of Vrindavan?
No.
No. Chandravali says no. Do you want to explain why not? Because
you are a beginner, you don't have that understanding of the higher pastimes, because pastimes of loving ecstasies of Radharani are really at prema high level, mahabhav, you know. So you're not going to be able to, you're going to make mistakes by trying to put them in the material context.
yeah, very good. You've been listening very well. We've covered this many times. And I guess the question in itself means it kind of implies that you can't, just because Maharaj is asking the question. But yeah, let's see what Maharaj says here. Well, that's basically it. He mentions that we should hear about in what is the context that we can hear about Radharani and the pastimes in Vrindavan. And then he mentions the different types of hearing. You know, there's what's called incidental hearing. It's not purposeful or it's not specific. Remember we mentioned that last week. Different types of hearing. Different type hearing. So the type of hearing a beginner may do will be incidental. You know, like maybe, for example, Radhastami. You know, you're going to go to a temple, you're going to hear a class about Radharani. So it's incidental. It's not like it's not a purposeful study, or it's not a specific study that you are doing. Incidental. You may be reading Krishna book, you know, you're reading Krishna book in a group. You may be reading at night, then you're going to come to Raslila, you're going to come to descriptions about Radha and Krishna, you know. So that's incidental. It comes in the course of your hearing in the temple or even reading. But then Maharaj also mentions that we should, beginners, we can relish the descriptions of Krishna's pastimes as they appear in Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu's meditations. Yep. This is also in the category of incidental hearing. So we're hearing Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we're hearing Ramananda Roy's Samvad, which goes into quite some details about Radha Krishna, and also Lord Chaitanya's ecstasies. When he faints away and he's in a role of a manjari and he's collecting flowers for Radha Krishna. So that's kind of not purposeful, it's incidental as you're reading about Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So he mentions that, then that's fine. Yeah. All right. Any other questions on that?
I've got one question.
Yes, please, Prabhu Vishanu.
So when we are distributing books, and sometimes when we are prepared to do big books and Chaitanya Charitamrita and Srimad Bhagavatam, yes, but Chaitanya Charitamrita I don't actually give unless they have read Srimad Bhagavatam and things like that.
That's what you do personally, yeah?
Yes.
You don't.
Is that okay? Is that okay? Because of Antya Lila, I don't think they would understand. And I always, even if I give Chaitanya Charitamrita, I always say that you must read these books and then go, then you will have a little bit more understanding. And if you can avoid Antya Lila, if when you are reading the Samvad, please try to avoid it if you can't understand.
Yeah, that's good personal instructions that you can give someone who you're cultivating. And often they ask, isn't it? Often they ask is, what book shall I read?
Yes, they do. Yeah. They do.
They ask, like I was on book distribution on Sunday, and this Spanish lady, she showed a nice interest in the science of self-realization. And she was asking me, what's the best book for me to read? Because I don't know much at all, you know? Mm-hmm. So I said, well, it's a book you have there in your hand. It's the science of self-realization. But that question that you just asked is the next question here, you see? Is it valid for ISKCON to indiscriminately distribute teachings that include esoteric philosophy and pastimes? So I think what you said is correct in a personal context. Well, let's just read what Maharaj says here.
Yes, okay, thank you.
So the reader may question the validity of indiscriminately distributing teachings that include Krishna's esoteric philosophy and pastimes. Doesn't this conflict with the Lord's direct instruction to withhold even the Gita's less esoteric teachings from unqualified persons? So Krishna says one should never instruct this message to those not austere, or those do not have faith. In Srila Prabhupada's time, some Vaishnavas criticized his policy, and even today some of his followers voiced the same concern. The answer to this question lies in the unique character of Srila Prabhupada's books. It is true that many Vaishnava books are unsuitable for public consumption. However, Srila Prabhupada's translations with their lucid purports are suitable and especially effective because they systematically qualify the readers. So that's something to consider. Prabhupada's presentation of Krishna Lila is given in a very specific, very difficult for persons to get the wrong idea, although it's still possible. But he, for instance, in Krishna book, then he actually describes a lot of philosophy before he begins the Gopi Gita, before he begins the Ras Lila. But still, Mother Vishalni's point is very valid as well. Generally, I think in the beginning days, they was distributing Chaitanya Charitamrita?
Prabhu, can I add something?
21 printed.
Actually, it wasn't printed. So
yeah, it wasn't printed.
Only recently, last 2-3 years, since the COVID, they are saying, with especially Narasan, Gomatsya, and that since then there is a lot of pressure on CC as well, and I keep on saying it's not right to pressurize in that manner. You know?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, you're pointing now the devotees are distributing whole sets on the street.
Yes.
Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes.
Chaitanya.
Srimad Bhagavatam, people, first thing, even when I'm distributing, we always keep Mahabharata now in Ramayan on our tables. And they would ask me, which book shall I read? Mahabharata? And I would say, take Mahabharata, so you will know who the characters are. And then in the midst, there is Bhagavad Gita. But this is a separate Bhagavad Gita with lot of information, purport by Srila Prabhupada. So they take both the books.
Yeah, very nice. So how can we explain in the context of this question what's going on presently? We're distributing whole Srimad Bhagavatam sets to persons who are never heard of Krishna. They're just going to the shop, and this guy sells me a set of an encyclopedia of spiritual life.
It's like giving out books to people who might not understand it at all.
Yeah, let's try and see how it can be. Let's try and think of how it can be okay. I think it's
okay because Srimad Bhagavatam is lots about stories as well.
Yes, yes.
And like PC is, if you, the beginning is a lot of understanding, you know, like who the Panchatattvas are. And then also in there, the most important thing is like association with the devotees, always like prasad, association with devotees, kirtan, how they behave with each other, you know, and we can learn a lot from that. You know.
Yeah, I think
I
also.
think Srimad Bhagavatam,
The Antya Lila that gets me.
yeah, like in the same thing in Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada said, don't go to the 10th canto till you've really understood.
But yet he did,
understand.
yet he published Krishna book.
Yeah, but
you know,
the way that Krishna book is written,
Yes, it's different.
it's
Prabhupada's
different.
written in such a way that even unqualified persons can
Yes,
kind of
It's a story. Yes.
yes, yes, yes.
And then in the CC as well, you know, okay, don't come to the end, don't read till the end. Maybe by the time you try and read the other books and do most of CC, you'll be qualified enough. But CC to me, I mean, I really love it anyway.
yeah.
But it's just association, the mood, how they behave with each other, the prasads, and you know, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
And it's the devotees, but you can imagine what the ladies behind are doing. They're just cooking and how they, bringing the children up, and so you know.
Somebody actually told me, Sissy is all about eating. I said, prasad, prasad. And I said, yes, that is, because that's what we do as well, eat. But how to eat, what to eat, that's what they are saying, you know. It's funny when people come out with some questions.
Yeah, so
you know,
what?
Madhis came up with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first put Haridas Thakur in the Samadhi. So there's so much understanding to be
But
from there.
But just highlighting the point that Mother Vishani just made, like she spoke to someone, and what they got from Chaitanya Tatamrita is just about, it's about eating. So that's what they got. So it kind of highlights the very personal nature of these books. I think we can probably all agree that, you know, persons who get Srimad Bhagavatam, say, on the street, they are not going to grasp it. They're not going to understand it completely. Even ourselves, we are trying to understand it. We are trying to comprehend it. But it's going to, I mean, the books, what I'm trying to say is the books themselves are personal, and they will reveal according to the qualification and sincerity to the people reading it. So that's one thing. Another thing is that to purchase the whole set of Srimad Bhagavatams, they're actually entering into quite a relationship. We've spent quite some money, and they've got a whole encyclopedia. So that will entail that they will have questions. So that's when the preaching starts. So that's why the contacts and cultivation of these people is very important. Just to give someone the set of Bhagavatams and let them, you know, in one sense we could, because again, the Bhagavatam's a person, and it's going to reveal according to the qualification, the person involved. But it should be hopefully the start of a relationship between the devotee who actually gives them the set. So we should encourage them. So I would say, I think they are. They're very, in Atlanta, they're very, I think they take contacts very importantly.
Yes.
So therefore, yeah, so I think if someone is infused, and if we're infused about distributing, if we can get infused about distributing sets of Srimad Bhagavatam, then I think we should, and that's what's going on now. But it should be, they should know, or you should know, or conclude that they're not going to, we should say that there's parts in this book that you're probably going to need to ask questions about. So I'm always here, you know, so let's, so like that, so we can help them become qualified to actually understand it.
Yeah, the sets we have given up to now, I keep on contacting them and asking them, have you started? Have you read? None of them have started reading yet. And I keep on just saying, read Bhagavad Gita, slowly go, slowly, take your time, understand, and then do it. And some people come and say, I've read Bhagavad Gita, didn't understand a word. And I said, don't worry, we all went through that.
That's why perhaps you want to bring it to another level. You want to say, okay, let's read it together.
Yes, but they don't have time. They're working.
We keep trying.
When they're talking about prasad, even in ISKCON, every program, every Zoom thing you get, every program that's going on, they always at the bottom, Mahaprasad will be served, prasad will be served, things like that.
Well, so even on Zoom classes, how's that possible?
Zoom classes, I mean the classes, that.
Oh, live classes.
At the manor, they always like prasad will be served, kirtan there, but prasad will be served at 9 o'clock, so prasad is the main thing in our ISKCON anyway.
Well, nothing's complete without prasadam. That kind of completes the sacrifice. So
and religion.
Yeah.
All right, I think we did. I think we covered this. Anything else at all on this question? 120. Yes, Nitya.
Share something which I heard from Kadambakanda Maharaj like a few days ago.
Yeah, please go
on. Maharaj was saying, if somebody Chaitanya Charitamrita is, that is our philosophy. Altogether, we have to understand that. And also he said, if somebody finds difficult, then read Chaitanya Bhagavat.
Yeah, I heard that. Yes.
Because Bhagavad Gita is instruction. Yeah, that's okay. But I'm saying like Chaitanya Charitamrita is our philosophy. That is where we have to go, and that's our practice. And otherwise, we won't be able to practice, because in Krishna's pastimes, these things we can't practice in this life.
So what was you saying about Chaitanya Bhagavat? Sorry, I missed that.
No, I'm saying if somebody is finding difficult about Chaitanya Charitamrita, read Chaitanya Bhagavat first, and then go to Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Because in Chaitanya Bhagavat, it's all about pastimes of Nimai,
Exactly. With that mercy, because as you rightly mentioned, Prabhu, is personality. And actually, we don't know who is qualified. Nobody is qualified in this Kali Yuga. So we can't just discriminate people saying maybe they are not qualified, maybe Chaitanya Charitamrita is everybody can relish, but do Chaitanya Bhagavat. That's what it is.
I think we can perhaps, I think we conclude that it's very personal. So like when you're preaching, it's up to you to decide how you're going to guide the persons you're preaching to, and what books, and Krishna, hopefully, Krishna will help you to decide in what way to direct them. And it's not one shoe fits all. Sometimes you may meet people on the street even who are quite philosophical and have read religious texts and are ready for Srimad Bhagavatam 1:1, for example. So I think we can, so we need to help people. We need to be able to correctly understand what level people are at and what they're ready to hear. That's what this whole study is about as well, even for us. Because we have to, even for us ourselves, this book and this study is all about what can we hear, let alone when people first come to Krishna consciousness. So, and so we have to be a little bit personal, bit sensitive. If we're giving out, if I'm blessed to ever distribute a set of Bhagavatams, then I would definitely want to keep in touch with the person and to help them with the study. But the conclusion is that, it's not one shoe fits all. But this question 121 is also connected. We've covered it to some degree. How do Srila Prabhupada's books qualify readers to hear confidential knowledge? So this question is implying that Prabhupada's books do qualify people to hear. So Marge brings up the case about he brings up that Prabhupada's purports are and these translations, they are empowered. Yeah. And he brings up the fact that he refers to the Bhagavad Gita. You know, there's hundreds of versions of the Gita out there, but Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is has created hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of devotees just by the translations and the purports themselves. On the spot, people become devotees of Krishna. So that's called parampara. That's called Prabhupada's empowered words. So that's also to be considered as well. I think I was referring to that a little bit earlier, that Prabhupada's purports have a lot of potency. So here they have even the potency to qualify persons to actually read and understand. I'm sure we've heard many stories of Prabhupada disciples or others who have read other Bhagavad Gitas but couldn't understand head or tail of it. But when they got Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, everything seemed very clear. Yeah. Let's just read this part here. Second, Srila Prabhupada's method of presentation describes complex philosophy in easy to understand, non-technical language, and confidential pastimes in an innocent, non-suggestive way. Yeah, that's the word I was trying to look for in Prabhupada's Krishna book. In an innocent, non-suggestive way. Thus, his books are accessible and safe. And third, Prabhupada's purports provide foundational knowledge for first-time readers, while simultaneously presenting deeper understandings for more qualified devotees. So that's also the genius and empowerment of Prabhupada's books. Yeah. That he can speak, he can communicate with all different levels of persons, first-time readers and those who are more qualified, just like Prabhupada's lectures or sometimes classes even. You understand these points?
Yeah, I was thinking in a different way, like say Prabhupada's sentences, even one sentence, compare it to when Krishna came in the arena to fight, everybody saw him in different light. You know, Mother Yashoda.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah.
Yeah, Prabhupada's purports are like that. When we read it, to what degree you will understand it according to your qualification. You know?
That's why I was saying that these books are, they're written, you could say they're written by God himself. Prabhupada was the instrument for God's words, for Krishna's words, and they're not ordinary words. And so
Murli Prabhu as well. I mean, Murli Prabhu,
yes,
you're so right. As well, because Prabhupada said that actually I haven't been writing. Krishna is the one who wrote all the books. You know? So what you said is so 100%. And like Chandravali Mataji says about the reading as well, when we listen to the classes, early days, Prabhupada used to say, just sit down and listen, and you will get, later on, we'll understand. He's so right. And now, before we didn't used to understand, his pronunciation was very hard. But now we can't put back, we cannot put listening. We want to, exactly.
So this is interesting conversation. So I think also, having understood this, I think also it doesn't negate directing people personally to like those who, you're preaching to people. And we can direct them to either Bhagavad Gita, SSR as well. I mean, that still plays a role as well. But any of Prabhupada's books that we give or we distribute, we should rest assured that Krishna's going to take care of them and what they're going to read, Yeah. Any final comments on that?
So, Prabhu, taking your comment, can we say even, okay, for a beginner, you can say SSR and Bhagavad Gita normally goes together easily, like, because, that goes together. Yes, but for somebody who had read some books of Srila Prabhupada, even without thinking, oh, maybe we don't know whether the person is qualified or not. We can just say we read it because Krishna is going to guide, because just taking that. So we don't need to be worried about Chaitanya Charitamrita, oh, how am I going to understand? Or sometimes maybe somebody practicing like myself for a very long time in just by ears, but somebody new, maybe very in a different level. So I may be judging wrongly, isn't it, Prabhu?
Yeah, that's another point as well. Again, I think we can rest on the fact that we don't have to worry too much, because the way that Prabhupada has presented the philosophy, and the fact that it's empowered by Krishna.
Yeah, exactly.
Then the books have a life of their own, and what they reveal to the readers is very personal thing. At the same time, though, when we're preaching to people and we understand where they are at, we can still also direct them to books that which may be more suitable for them as well. So simultaneously, giving them Prabhupada's books, but at the same time also being a bit personal of what books we may direct them to in order to assist them. So I think both play a role, but don't worry too much about. We should distribute Prabhupada's books, and sometimes we have no choice on book distribution. Like often on book distribution, all the SSRs are gone in 2 hours, and often I've been many times, and just left on the book table is the Krishna book, Krishna book and Srimad Bhagavatam. So we're not going to stop distributing books because there's no SSRs, So we just, okay, we run out of SSRs, okay. Then someone asks, what's the best book to read? And there's no SSRs. So, okay, this one is the best, the Bhagavad Gita. So we give them Bhagavad Gita.
Have a book on the table is the best book to read.
Yeah, this book on the table is the best book to read. We're not going to tell them, sorry, you better not take any of these books because you don't think you'll understand them. We've given out the beginner books. Perhaps come back tomorrow. No, when they've stopped, they need to get one of these books. Whether they're qualified to read it or not, they're going to become qualified just by touching it.
Because Krishna has a plan for them.
Yeah. So we shouldn't be too, too discriminating. Yeah. All right. Well, time shot away. Let's go to this next set of questions. All right. Similar. Is that the same question? Is that? Yeah. How do Srila Prabhupada qualify readers to hear confidential knowledge? How is it that Srila Prabhupada's books qualify readers to hear confidential? It's a very similar question. Oh, yes, I think that's the same question, isn't it? Would you say? How do Srila Prabhupada's books qualify readers to hear confidential knowledge? Let me see if I've got this right.
How do
we did. This is the one we were speaking.
And this one, how is it that Srila Prabhupada? So I think we've covered that because Prabhupada's books are empowered.
Yeah.
They're not ordinary books, so they can qualify readers to hear. And the confidential knowledge is presented in what was described as a non-suggestive, innocent way. And yes, I mean, I know, yeah.
Because of the purpose, Prabhu. Just because of the purpose of Srila Prabhupada. So those purposes make us
qualified. So on the same subject, also because I kind of say, because I've read some of the books of the Goswamis, and they are definitely, some of the books of the Goswamis are definitely, could be taken the wrong way completely. You shouldn't, the way Prabhupada has presented the Leela of Radha Krishna, if you read some of the Goswamis books, you really got to be, they're going to say you got to be somewhat qualified not to get the wrong idea. So those books you could not give out. You should not give out Govinda Lilamrita on the street, for example, or some of these books of the Goswamis, you know. But Prabhupada's books you can. Yeah, so you wouldn't direct a newcomer to the Goswami's books. That would be a mistake. Having said all that, yeah. Okay, so.
Prabhu, one quick thing.
Yes.
Srila said even for us, sadhakas, first read all. It is recommended. Read, although we are sometimes Amitavani, we are reading all these books. It's helpful, but Srila Prabhupada very clearly mentioned to read my books. If you read my books, it is that because he had presented in such a way that a dull-headed people like myself can understand.
Yeah, for sure. And these questions, this is the topic of the questions that's coming up. But Prabhupada did say Prabhupada also said we should read the books of the Goswamis as well. He said that.
That is after his books.
Sorry? After his books, yeah.
After his books, yes.
When one is...
Yeah.
So let's look at these questions here because they do tackle this. For instance, question 123 is, at what point may practicing devotees hear Krishna's eightfold daily pastimes? So this is called Astakaliya Leela. So I think we mentioned this before. Now this will be a specific reading for a certain type of devotee. They will specifically read this in order for smaranam, in order to remember while they're engaged in Shravanam, Kirtanam. Yeah. So at what point may Marge gave a specific stage, from, the stages from Shraddha to Prema in nectar devotion, Ado Shraddha, Tato, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajankriya, Anathanavritti, Nishta, Ruchi, Shakti, Bhava, and Prema. At what stage does it mention that that practicing devotees, these are not perfected devotees, so practicing, so say Raganuga, sudden, at what stage is it safe and okay to read these eightfold daily pastimes? Pastimes in the morning, pastimes in mid-morning, pastimes at noon, pastimes in the afternoon, strolling Vrindavan, pastimes in the evening, coming back from the cows, pastimes, etc. Yes, sorry, someone.
Nishta.
A Shakti. So Maharaj Bhumi is saying at the stage of a Shakti. Yeah, that is the stage after Ruchi, a Shakti, where one has a natural magnetic attraction to Krishna's pastimes. Anybody else would like to say?
Nishta.
Nishta, yeah. Here's what Maharaj says. The stage at which devotees are truly fit to systematically hear Krishna's pastimes varies with the individual. All right, so it's not legislated. However, he mentions when eagerness does arise, even at Nishta. So at Nishta, he mentions that devotees' inability to remember the pastimes without distraction. So even at Nishta, the mind may still be distracted. So he mentions that fails to offer due respect to these sacred topics. So it's not Nishta. He's mentioning at the stage of Ruchi, and Maharaj Bhumi was correct, saying the stage of Ruchi and attraction. So that attraction is a Shakti. So that's when one's devotees' minds are automatically drawn and they're able to remain fixed on Krishna's pastimes. Yeah. So this is devotees with spontaneous attachment. They still may be, so mentioned here, Marge, they're still practicing devotees, but they're at the stage in their practice of Ruchi. So that's the appropriate stage to begin meditating on Krishna's Astakalya Leela, the stage of Ruchi and Shakti, obviously. So even at Nishta, so that's good once attain Nishta, but these are very sacred, very Maharaj mentions, nicely he described it, very sacred, so there may still be distraction. Nishta means you're fixed in the principles of bhakti and you've got strong faith in Krishna. Yeah, so it's a stage below Ruchi. You know? But Ruchi comes along relatively quickly if one is fixed, hopefully. All right, so any further questions on that? Okay, so here's the question that we just touched on. 124. Can devotees read Krishna's eternal pastimes in books other than Srila Prabhupada's? So, okay, first stop is Srila Prabhupada's books. That's for sure. But over and above that, can devotees read? I think we already kind of suggested the answer, but yes or no?
You always say, yes, you can read, but under the guidance.
Yeah, it's not me. It says it's Shivaram Swami Maharaj is saying. So I'm just repeating the same thing. Yeah. So there's many books out there, you know, from the Goswami's books, so many books coming out at present. It's raining books, raining books in our society because we are about books. We're about that's our family business, to read books, to write books, and to distribute books. So there's different books. They're appropriate for aspiring devotees to read. Let me just read this. There are many books from those of the Goswamis to those of current authors, appropriate for devotees aspiring for steadiness to read. They should be read, however, under the guidance of one's own spiritual master.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, readers should remain faithful to Srila Prabhupada's guidelines, read other books secondary to reading his books, and read other books in proper sequence without premature study of confidential subjects. Srila Prabhupada did want devotees to read books other than his. He wanted them to read the books of the Acharyas and the books of his disciples. And then I didn't include the conversation, but then a conversation is, Maharaj refers to a conversation in Australia where Prabhupada confirms about reading the Goswami's books. So, yeah, some spiritual masters may just give you open permission to read as you like, you know. They may give that open direction on it. Yeah. Any questions about that?
Once I heard Prabhu Banaswami Maharaj explaining to a devotee when he asked the same question. He said, okay, if you want to read even whatever he had written, he was asking. He said, no, please finish all Srila Prabhupada's books and then get the guidance from your spiritual master.
Yeah. So what do you do if your spiritual master is not available? Or what do you do if spiritual master's gone back to Godhead?
That's right.
So then if you finish all the Srila Prabhupada books, Krishna is within your, Krishna is going to guide you, because if you're really done,
there's quite a high level of purification to directly, but still
all the books and guidance, as Mother Chandravali said, you get some guidance, because once your spiritual master has gone, definitely you must be thinking of another guru as a Shiksha guru. So at least you get guidance.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be the Diksha guru that gives you direction on what to read or what not to read, but it's good to get some feedback from devotees and run it by, ask them, devotees, senior devotees, you know, like that.
Even if your guru is not there, he's always blessing you from wherever it is.
Yeah, that's to be understood as well. But we would want to, it's best that we would want to, before we may read such books, it's good to speak with perhaps senior devotees just to get their permissions or blessings. Also, because we need blessings to be able to understand these books as well. So that's also a point as well. Anyway, for now, we're just struggling to make Prabhupada's books.
When our Guru Maharaj left, when our Guru Maharaj, Krishna Swami Maharaj left, and we didn't have many Shiksha Gurus really in our life. Because Guru Maharaj was the only one who used to spend so much time here with us. So we were guided under him. So after a couple of years later, we went to New Vrindavan. And then Shivram Maharaj asked me what books I have read. I mean, we were just talking and everything. Then said, what books are you reading and everything? So I said, my Guru Maharaj had always said, just read Srila Prabhupada's books till you get, you get confident to preach. So Srila Prabhupada's books, and he said, okay, now you can start reading Brihad Bhagavatam and Laghu Bhagavatam. So I said, yes, Maharaj.
Laghu Bhagavatam.
And Laghu Bhagavatam Rita, yeah. So I said, yes, Maharaj, I will start doing it. And then I did do that. I followed his instructions. But as such, I don't have any other contact because of, we never had any contact with other Siksha Gurus, you know. So it's very difficult to connect now after so many years because they don't know where we stand. I mean, I have Advaita Swami Maharaj who guides me as well, but here Shivram Maharaj guided me on his own accord.
Yeah, so incidental instruction, yeah. So yeah, another thing we make also the point that Nitai Mata is also, it's not, we've just gone over 7, but that is also valid as well, in that when we start reading a specific book, if we start getting the wrong idea or start getting disturbed, you know, we should stop reading. Simple as that. We may just be able to, again, as Nimai Mata said, a point is well taken, actually. We should be sincere. And if we're reading something and we're reminding of our own so-called amorous or pastimes and we're becoming it, and it gives us the wrong idea, then okay, we need to stop here and we need to perhaps go back a bit and come back to this later when we're a bit more purified. So that's also valid as well.
Sometimes we think Krishna is guiding, but sometimes it's our own intuition that we think he's guiding when we want to do something. And that's how we hold it, that Krishna is guiding, you know. So it's a speculation as well.
Yeah, so we have to be careful. That's why we have to be really truthful and really sincere. You know, when we're reading, for instance, say we're reading Krishna's pastimes, and if we're really sincere, then we really don't want to have the wrong idea. So if we're becoming disturbed and we're getting the wrong idea, okay, stop. Let me come back to this later. I'm not qualified, you know. So that's, you can be in that way. We can be our own guide as well. But that takes sincerity. Anyway, big subject, but hope we've answered some questions on this about different levels of hearing, what we can read, what we can't read, and we're continued then next week with we'll continue with these 2 questions, okay? Here, next week on the same subject. All right, we've gone a bit over time today, but thank you everyone for joining us. Very nice discussion as usual, and look forward tomorrow for we'll probably be reading the last part of Harinam Chintamani. The chapters, I was looking after last week's reading, although it's quite esoterical and technical, the last chapter, it's quite relatively short. So we could be finishing tomorrow. Let's see. or if not the week after.
Then what do they want to start? Do you want to start Bhagavad Gita next?
That's what was suggested, wasn't it? I think so. We can start going Bhagavad Gita.
Yes, it'd be good to.
Yeah, and there's a subject actually. Perhaps I need to speak to Chandravali Mother about about reading Bhagavad Gita and studying. And okay, Hare Krishna. We'll stop there for today.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Muli Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Namaha. Hare Krishna.